What you're about to watch is me explaining to my life coach training group how I coached a woman from wanting a divorce to not wanting a divorce. And not only that, but how I was able to help her see she spent some time with me just focusing on herself, building herself up, recognizing her strengths. And then from that place, we were actually able to look at her challenges and look at what was going on with her husband. Because if we started fresh looking at what's up with him, we would have totally missed out on what was going on with her and what wounds and inner children were being triggered within her within the context of her relationship. And 6 months later, she's doing amazing. And now her husband actually wants coaching too. So that's the brief synopsis. Enjoy as I explain in a brief way the process I took her through. If you're out there and this story resonates with you, take a listen. You might be surprised. And then you might want to hit me up. That may surprise you too, where we can go together. Before we move on to the next one, I wanted to share a little bit of something going on with a client or two with me, just to share the magic of coaching and kind of the magic of, I would call it HeartWorkU coaching, the belief of building this foundation in, I believe in your resilience, that whole foundation. So I have a client that came to me. She saw me in an interview on YouTube. So a total stranger, and obviously I'll keep her anonymous. But she came to me just kind of lost and not feeling fulfilled in her marriage. Okay. And the reason why I'm sharing that is that's very common for people to not feel fulfilled in their relationships. We can get lost. We can lose ourselves in our relationship. And, in the beginning, just feeling like, I don't know if I want to be with this man. I'm tired of it. And I knew, and I was able to get her to buy in to, let's work on you. Let's do our due diligence. Let's discover you first. And so from this place of strength, we can then look at more deeply what's going on with him, his behaviors. Because if you were to start a coaching session with what he's doing, we're completely distracted and not knowing what is her inner child doing. And that's also why if couples come to me, I take them separate first. Because in the first few sessions, you're dealing with two wounded egos, two inner children. It's too much. It's literally confusing. It's just way too much to deal with. And she reached out to me, so it's not like her husband wanted coaching at that time. So that was back in June. And you guys, we've gone through the process. And immediately when we first went through her personality, she actually has my personality. So that was fun. Major awareness in self-acceptance. Because again, she comes to the table with a childhood, which caused her to lose her identity, not being understood, not being seen for who she is. So even just that one exercise of looking at the strengths of her personality opened things wide open. Tons of moments of reflection, even tears, even awarenesses. And obviously during that time, appropriate heart work was assigned each week because she loved that as well. And then we looked at her Enneagram and discovered she's a 2. And it's like, whoa, that opened up all kinds of things, and realizing, oh my gosh, I've been giving to everyone but myself. And then we moved into understanding ego. Then she can make this distinction between her higher self and ego in a stronger way. And then we moved through emotional self-sufficiency, where you discover your inner children. And that was just in a deeper way, like getting to know each one of your inner children. So again, keep in mind, she came to me dissatisfied in her marriage. And meanwhile, in her marriage, she was just focused on herself and was less focused on him. And she called herself the observer, just observed. and she would report back to me things she was observing. So I was a witness to what she was observing, and I could be her resilience cheerleader, celebrating with her every step of the way of the things she was observing in herself, her husband, the reactions. And she was able to stay pretty neutral, but then inner children would come up. So we would talk about the inner children that were coming up. And sometimes we would have to pause and just see them and breathe and let tears come. So it was just this amazing process. So now we're talking, what is it, 6 months later? She hadn't felt comfortable bringing any of it to her husband. And she finally did. And she did, though, from this place of strength, right? Rather than coming to him from her wounded ego. If she'd gone earlier, all of her inner children would have been triggered. And she probably would have, I could sense, she would have made him feel wrong, or he would have taken it that way. His inner children would have been awakened, and you would have had two inner children fighting. So instead, she knew her higher self enough that she was able to come to him with vulnerability and just start sharing from that space. And now guess who's going to get coaching from me? Husband.
Oh my gosh.
So she just texted me this long message last night, and I was just celebrating with her. And you guys, there's just nothing more exciting for me. This is why I do it. So it was worth that 6 months of her focusing on her, because she had a lifetime of not focusing on her, not knowing who she was. And then this process of just honestly going through with building her up, going through the various workbooks in that order. It's just this perfect way of someone to get to know themselves, get strong within themselves, so then they can approach the mate. To me, this way is for the long haul. If you want a short, quick counseling type experience where it's both of them together and you just give them one little thing that they work on together, you guys know the inner children are going to show up and you're going to have a ton of triggers continuing to happen. But with this way, it's a strong foundation. So I'm super excited. I wanted to share that. Yeah.
Coach Kim, do you as a coach remember what she said, and is it hard to like keep back certain things because you're like, I know what she's telling me, and then now you're telling me something different because you've spent 6 months with her, or you're able to like differentiate, like, okay, this is a different person, different day.
Well, that's a good question. So, what I'll do the same thing with him. Day one is building the foundation in him. So we won't even be talking about the two of them together. I have
Okay.
to zero in on him and get clear with his personality. So he feels grounded in himself. And because what I know from their relationship, he is more of a like worker, and he feels achievement through working, and he loves that, and it fills him up. So he has to have that as a part of his life. And because she had become codependent, she needed more of him than he could give. And I could feel that.
Mm.
Okay. So that's part of what happened, is she realizing, she was being in the beginning very demanding. I want my relationship to be more full and dynamic. And there's a balance there, though. She knew through me that she couldn't take away his work from him. It's what makes him him. So we can't take that away, but we can bring in balance, right? But she wasn't in a space for balance in the beginning. We had to come to that place of balance. And then by the end, she realized how codependent she was, her inner children were. So anyway, now he too, though, he'll have to come through it with me to discover his balance, because I'm sure he's putting more in the work pot because of his inner children. That's a safe space for him. Her safe space was overgiving. She doesn't want to overgive anymore. So see, it'll be really fun.